incredible, beautiful, talented Troye Sivan, who sang the song tonight. I love it. We have like a long runway to walk. Show your stuff, Troye. Okay, I'm right here. I'm right here. At your mic. I want to just start by sending a collective hug out to everyone because I had a chance to see the film earlier this year, and so many of us were crying. I know that a lot of LGBTQ people and all people relate to so many of the themes in this movie, and I know you're probably really feeling that right now. So I think my first question, I would love to talk about mental health and how you took care of yourself while making this film, because it goes to some really dark and complex places. I know that you did a lot of really intensive research to understand the experience of conversion therapy and relate to the characters. So how did you take care of yourself while you were filming and coming home after a long day?
Until about 3 weeks ago when I had a little holiday, had spent a whole, I think, almost 2 years doing nothing but almost every day thinking about and then working on and realising the movie of Garrett's memoir that had got so under my skin. I actually felt really great the entire time doing it, in that I wasn't really overthinking anything. In fact, I had finished the memoir and just figured like that was really compelling. I feel like this is what I'm telling in a different form, as in like making a movie of, because as much as I was expecting just complete darkness and hatred and yes, there's a lot of dark aspects to it, there was something incredibly hopeful about Garrett's particular experience. That not his experience in conversion therapy, but his development of his own agency and his parents' relative, mother in particular, roundabout in terms of re-examining her choices, that felt like it was worth putting a hopeful story into the world. And I think that hopefulness sort of carried me through. It's tough making a movie. I have met my own mental health issues for sure, but thankfully one of them is a big dose of ADHD. And that allowed me, and has allowed me, to kind of obsess over and completely focus on something, albeit the chaotic nature of making a film, in order to do everything I could to get us to this point. And apart from that, I have my own great infrastructure, family and friends and whatever, but I felt really driven. What I'm more worried about is now that it's out there in the world and I have nothing to do, then my issues are going to kick in. What about you, Troye?
I think a big part of kind of staying positive throughout the whole thing was just a sense of community on set. I think the general vibe was that we were all aware of the fact that we were trying to do something that hopefully is going to really make a change. And especially amongst the cast, all of my scenes took place at Love in Action, and so it was one location for however many weeks we were shooting, and kind of like an ensemble cast. It was probably like, what, 8 of us or something like that?
Yeah, I think there's 10 in the group, and then they slowly start to whittle back.
Yeah, so, conversations between scenes and between setups and stuff like that, and kind of being there for each other, and then as well for me personally, it just made me so grateful that this was all kind of like a dream that I could snap out of. I knew very well that I was going to fly back to LA, where I like forget that not everyone is gay sometimes. So that was comforting. Yeah.
It's nice sometimes, isn't it? So we get in our nice little cocoon bubble. Joel, going back to the origin of this project, I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone, I think, for fighting so hard to bring this story to life. I think it's going to change so many hearts and minds and really reach people and open them up. And one thing that I really love about the film is that I feel like it would be an easy temptation to villainize certain characters and have like the heroes and villains, but you show the humanity of everyone, which I think provides a lot of entry points for people to watch the film who may be going in support conversion therapy or haven't thought much about it, and so I really appreciate that. But what was it about the original story that resonated with you personally and made you want to fight so hard to make this possible?
Well, initially I read the book very quickly because it was a different thing. It was my pure fascination based on you know, a very real fear when I was a child of being taken away from my parents. And I had, and I remember this, I had my foundation of my nightmares, the basis of my prayers and I was raised Catholic. I'm not, my religion is a different question now, but as a young Catholic boy, my prayers were all about not being taken away from my parents, not being put in some horrible boarding school where everybody was going to treat me badly, or sent to prison, or abducted. And so, you know, as I grew up as a, you know, an acting student and I was interested in film, I realised I was really gravitating towards stories about prisons and institutions and so on. So when I was given the book, I was like, oh, this is like a different kind of institution I've never heard of before. And I came at it purely with a morbid curiosity about learning about some other new weirdness, right? Kind of like watching a crime show on TV or something. What I didn't expect was that it was more complicated, that the choices, the foundation of this place, conversion therapy, was not just purely judged, as I prejudged it, born out of hatred, by hateful people. Parents weren't hateful, people sending their kids there. Now, I know there are those scenarios too, but it wasn't Garrett's story or the story of Love in Action. This was a place that was born out of a certain amount of information based on beliefs. The parents had a certain belief system and information. They thought they were really trying to help. And that was far more complicated than I first imagined. And given, you know, my big obsession thematically is really when human beings make mistakes and they re-examine those mistakes afterwards. So it's, you know, this thing I say is like, it's not what you do so much that matters, is what you do next that counts. And his mother really typified and was such a heroic example of that. And as I said, that hopefulness was the thing that I wouldn't have made a conversion therapy pure torture story. And again, they do exist. But at least this gives some middle ground to go. Some people send their child to these places and it sometimes takes a long time, but you can re-examine the actions you've committed, the choices you've made, and look back and do something different. And that hopefulness was enough of a reason to do both things. Expose the light on conversion therapy, but also tell Garrett's particular story, which gives, I think, other people a lot of potential hope.
One of the things that I think adds such emotional texture to the film is Troye's music and Troye's involvement with the film. And so could you talk about, that is definitely worthy of a big round of applause. Could you talk about your introduction to Troye and how you brought him into the project?
Well, Carmen Cuba is our casting director, and casting directors are so fantastic because as a director, sometimes you just look with blinkered vision and the pool of people you imagine, and literally look who are the actors out there that can play these roles. And casting directors sometimes alert you to your peripheral vision to other great choices. And Carmen's very smart. She was responsible for bringing Flea to me in the role of, sounds like Carmen just goes to concerts, I think. She just, well, she wants to go to more and more concerts, so she hires musicians. But she told me about Troye, and I was aware of Troye, but I was aware of him in the music sphere, and Troye read for me, as in put a tape down, and I was like, wow, he on one hand, he's an angel, and he's a great actor, he's Australian, but I have an open mind to Australians being able to play Americans, obviously. And his performance was so fantastic, and I couldn't get him out of my mind. The musical stuff came later, and Troye had written pieces of music. You know, once he arrived on set, he was like, I'd also like to contribute music. And I was like, well, that would be amazing. But I had at that time made a decision that because Love in Action was so devoid of music, you couldn't watch TV or films, that it would be weird to put modern music into it. It wasn't until later that I made the decision to put the real footage of Lucas as a child at the very beginning, and the way it married to Troye's song, The Good Side, that I was more open to that. And then later when we were developing this idea of this piece of music for perhaps the most tender moment in the film, this collaboration with Jonesy and Troye came about. And I'm so thankful for that. It's just such a truly beautiful song.
Another round of applause for the song. Congratulations. Troye, take us back to that very first casting meeting and what drew you to the project and your journey through it.
Yeah, so first thing that happened was I got sent the script, and normally it takes me a little while to get through scripts, and I just like blasted through it in like 2 hours or something like that, and was just so compelled by the story. You know, I think the thing that really scared me the most and kind of shocked me as well was that I always imagined kids going to these camps like forced by their parents, you know what I mean, kicking and screaming, and Jared doesn't do that, and that really struck me, you know, because it made me think, it made me question, before I had sort of come to terms with my sexuality, and when I was really vulnerable and scared as like a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old, and it was just this big worry in the back of my head, had someone had offered me, someone that I trust, like my parents or my rabbi, I'm Jewish, but had they have said to me, you know, I've got a way to fix this, I've got a way to get this off your chest, and we can you know, make this not something that you need to worry about anymore, I would have been like, yeah, take me, you know, I'm down, let's do this. And that really, now, reading that as a 23-year-old, it completely freaked me out, and it was like all I could think about. And so, so that made me, I was like, I would do anything to be a part of this movie. I think it's, you know, found out that it's still super prevalent in 2018, which blows my mind and made me really angry. And so I really just kind of threw myself at the movie, and as an actor, and then once I got the role, I was like, cool, my foot's in the door now, I need to try and just naturally I wanted to make music for the movie. I think I would have done it just in my own personal time anyway. I did, before we started shooting the movie, we wrote like 5 songs, me and my friends, just about the screenplay, almost as like a form of research, I think, and then revelation came later once we got, Joel sent me that scene from the movie. I'd had a meeting with Joel and Jonesy, and I sat and watched that scene in the movie, which is one of my favorite scenes, where you just see Jared get to experience something that I really hope that every single person in the entire world gets to experience, let alone just LGBTQ people, where you just see like pure love, and there's nothing wrong with anything in that moment. And I think that maybe Jared starts to kind of realize that, you know, because it probably just feels so right. And so that moment being a revelation to him, and the song just like, when watching the scene, it basically wrote itself in like half an hour.
Wow. So that came together in a really brief amount of time.
Yeah.
Whew, that's getting me emotional just hearing that. I mean, I think that you can truly feel that emotion. Anyone who has experienced that, like, it's perfectly captured in this song. So how many of you were at Troye's concert this week? I love it! So for those of you who weren't, you need to see Troye on his Sold Out Bloom tour. He performed this week at the Greek Theater in LA, and you spoke about the movie and you performed Revelation. It was one of the first times you performed it live. How was performing it live and the experience of being with an audience different from doing it, you know, whilst watching the scene and seeing it in the film?
It's really interesting because I feel so just lucky and privileged to be in the position that I'm in my personal life, where my family is like this textbook perfect family as far as handling an LGBT child. They've just been nothing but lovely, and my friends have been nothing but lovely, and then I've still got to kind of do everything that I've ever dreamt of, and my show is sort of a physical representation of that, because I get to look out and see pride flags, and people are on dates. The other night we had 4 guys making out all at once, right in front of me, and I was like, this is so awesome, like, this is so cool. Obviously there's some really, really sweet, tender stuff going on as well, but just like, it's kind of like anything goes, you know what I mean? And that, to me, is like, so cool. And so I look out and I see that, and again, that's just what I hope for the world, you know what I mean? I hope that everybody gets to have that experience, not specifically that experience, but that experience of just being completely free, you know? And so it's almost like you're looking at the after of what we're trying to achieve by putting out this movie, you know?
beautiful as a bookend moment.
Totally.
So Joel, going to the research that you did for the film, I know that you spent a lot of time speaking to people that have been impacted by conversion therapy and Sykes, your character himself. Could you talk about some things that really surprised you or that you weren't expecting throughout the research process?
Yeah, I mean, so Lucas, myself, David Craig, who's a co-producer and plays Michael in the film, one of the Blue Star therapists, and Garrett. We went back to Garrett's hometown in Arkansas. We went to various places that Love and Action had been housed in. We met up with Dr. Julie, who Cherry Jones plays, and we had dinner with his parents, and we went to church the following day. Bunch of stuff, you know. I went to Texas and had lunch with John Schmidt, who my character is based on, who I had lunch with, he and his husband Larry, as you found out from, you know, reading the text at the end of the film. Look, I learned a lot of things. You know, it was very important that we get everybody's point of view. I think one of the biggest learning things for me was just understanding that this film, as it got closer to being locked in the edit, became more and more about the family, and we diminished more and more of the therapy in order to give more time to the family, because it made sense to me just how important parents are in the decisions that affect young people in all ways, but particularly in regards to conversion therapy. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned was how much parents take on. And it's one of those things that was like, oh, it makes sense. It wasn't like a new thing, but I was reminded of how parents take on, for no reason at all, some sense of shame. They have their own coming out of sorts to question, like how much they feel like they publicly need to declare themselves, and it creates so much drama and chaos and pain where there needs to be none. And I was reminded of that by sitting opposite Garrett's father and seeing how much pain was inside of this man for not being able to accept his son fully. And I'd always been focused when I read the book on the young people and the people going through the therapy, understanding how possibly to get inside the minds of parents and realise that they're the ones creating so much of the drama, so much of the fear, of the anticipation for anybody to declare themselves to their parents. I just couldn't believe how much it becomes about them. But in order to kind of shine a light on that too, the film became quite a lot about the decisions that those parents make.
I saw Garrett's mother at the premiere. I did not see his father. Has his father seen the film? Have you gotten any reactions?
His father hasn't seen the film yet, as far as I know. Look, he was complicit in making the film. He invited me into his home, he invited me and Russell and everybody into his church. He gave Russell the pen that he uses in the film. He had a text exchange with Russell and myself throughout the making of the film. When I met him in Arkansas 4 months before the shoot, I could tell from my conversations with him, like you see on the porch, like he hadn't read the book. He was telling me things that happened in the book as if I'd never heard of them before, and I was like, wait, you haven't read the book. So Daddy's going to see the movie straight away. His wife says he'll probably watch it when it streams, you know, in private. He's as the movie suggests, he's trying, but he hasn't succeeded. But he's the only one that can succeed, given what he needs to do. Garrett doesn't need to do anything. It's just about how much he's willing to inch closer.
That scene at the end gave me some hope. That was a bit of light that I hope.
I hope so. I mean, look, Garrett's married. Herschel, the real father, hasn't met his husband. I was there when his mother met his husband. His mother does all this. She's a hero. She's just purely a hero. She really is. He is trying, but he's got to try a bit harder.
Amen. Troye, going back to your times on set, what was one of the most powerful or meaningful moments that you had, on or off camera?
I remember there was one day we had a conversation just amongst us. I think it was at lunch or something like that, and obviously not going to name any names or anything like that, but one of the cast members expressed that their family still to this day, and they were one of the older people in the crowd, tries to get them to go to conversion therapy. And so then we were filming our moral inventory scenes, and they were filming theirs, and the tears were just like pouring out of them, and the line between like reality and what we were doing for this movie got really, really blurry for a second. And I think it hit at home for all of us that day how close this is and how real it is still to this day, yeah, for a lot of people.
It must have been so powerful to be telling these stories when it is so relevant and it is such an issue, and there's so much important activism and political awareness that's happening right now about conversion therapy. And I love that Boy ERASED partnered with the Trevor Project and the Human Rights Campaign and GLAAD, several leading LGBTQ organizations who are doing work day in and day out to just raise awareness about the horrors of conversion therapy and try to stop it. But it was like all happening, and it seems like a lot of the people in the cast are part of the community, have personal stories and connections to it.
Yeah, and actually, that person wasn't out before to like anyone before coming to set, and has since told me that they started, like, because of the movie, started coming out and to workmates and stuff like that. So the movie's already doing what I hoped that it would. So yeah, there's a bit of hope there.
Amazing. That's a testament to the type of environment that you created on set too. So thank you for being an ally and helping champion it.
Well, it was kind of, you know, it was very helpful to me and to the movie, but to create a group of people in that therapy who could bring their own stories if they were willing to. And not all of the group, I don't know for sure what the percentage, but not all of them identify as LGBTQ, but a good percentage of, who would bring their own stories, whether they were speaking dialogue or not. And I know who Troy's talking about too, is like just being able to kind of create also a path of least resistance and create a sort of an honesty and truth to what they needed to do on the day by just going, right, rather than have my personal story and create a whole other narrative, we would have these sort of chats about how to create something without forcing that narrative. Was like, I got a sense people were more willing just to go, okay, well, I'm going to bring my own story to this. And I could really tell because, you know, it was important for me, even though Lucas's character is the center of the story. At any given day in the therapy, how does any one of the other clients feel about each therapy? How do they feel about him escaping? Are they happy for him? Do they feel like he's a sinner? Like, you know, what were those different narratives? So that was important in many, many different ways.
I could talk to you forever. I would love to open it up to the audience for some questions, and I saw your hand go straight up.
I have two questions. Statement first. First and foremost, excellent film. It's your best film to date. Phenomenal. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So two-part question. How did you link up with Xavier Dolan? I'm a huge fan of his cinema. And the second question is, throughout all your films, you have this transformative element through all your performances. I want to know about your craft.
Zachary, how did I hook up with Xavier Dolan for this and about performance and transformation? I had a meeting at the Chateau Marmont with Xavier about being an actor for him. I think he's wonderful. I'm staggered by how prolific he is at such a young age. And when I was writing the film, you know, I wanted in many ways to, first of all, I was thinking about casting the family, but then when I went beyond that, I was also going, well, who do I mean, Garrett, the author of the book, wrote me a 4-page email about representation. And I was like, well, Xavier is so prolific. So many of his movies touch on LGBTQ themes. He's open. He is a great actor in his own films, albeit speaking French. And I was like, I wonder if this guy, what he would be like, if could he pass as an American? And so I ended up, you know, having known Xavier, hoping to work for him as an actor, I called him up and said, hey, would you come and work for me? And so we did a work session in New York, and he's so beguiling and beautiful and interesting and kind of mysterious as a person. Like, he's very hard not to look at, you know. And to create this character for him that was somebody kind of in a similar but opposite sides of the coin to Troye's character. Someone without words who could really draw you in, but he represents that sort of holding on tight to the therapy damaged person, as we find out with Troye, he's the guy who's got his own separate game being played. As far as transformation goes, I'm less comfortable being myself than I am being Ned Flanders, I guess. You know, there's something about John Schmidt that really fascinated me, as with other smaller characters that I've played in films, and to me acting is transformation, is dress-ups, and some of my favourite actors do things where energetic, it's not so much just about the outside, it's about energetic kind of transformation as well, and I find that a really great thrilling challenge to do that. I could never pretend or hide behind any kind of pretended sort of charisma to get me through making movies. I find real people more interesting than any kind of swagger or anything else I could try and pretend.
Guys, thank you for making this very socially relevant movie. It's very eye-opening, and congratulations. My question is for Troye. I want to know what's your religious background is like, and how did it affect the experience of you writing your song called Heaven?
Sure, yeah. So my religious background, I'm Jewish, and was raised kind of just like traditional. Never really, you know, we would do like Friday night Shabbat dinner. I did that every week growing up. It was more about a family dinner than anything else, but went to a Jewish school, and yeah, I feel really, really Jewish. I kind of had my own journey with Judaism when I came out to myself. That was when I sort of started to. It could have also just been a coincidence that I was around 15 at the time, which is when I started to kind of like question everything in the entire world. But I sort of distanced myself from like organized religion in a lot of ways, and just because it didn't really feel right to me. I still completely value a lot of the traditions. I think I would do Friday night dinner for the rest of my life, and you know, stuff like that, just because it's what my parents did, it's what my grandparents did, and you know, it just means a lot to me. But yeah, for me, when I kind of came to terms with my sexuality and realized that like traditional by the book Judaism maybe wouldn't be okay with that, it kind of put me off. And Heaven, my song, is a little bit about that. It's like, there's the lyric, if I'm losing a piece of me, then maybe I don't want heaven, you know? And it's like, it was that moment where I realized that maybe this is not, that's not for me then, and I have to kind of follow my heart, follow what feels right within myself. But I'm so lucky that I had the choice. You know, my parents have always just, you know, they raised us Jewish and have from day one always kind of let us question our beliefs and who we are and why we believe what we believe, and always made a really nice environment for us to kind of explore and grow. And now they have like 4 atheist kids. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Troye, looking towards the future, you've been on set, you saw Joel, who was acting and directing and writing in such a force in this creative process, and you did such an incredible job in the film, both with your music and also the acting. Do you see yourself wanting to direct and write and do more work in the creative process in the future?
Yeah, honestly, I really love making stuff, just always have, and so if that is, you know, whatever feels exciting to me at the time, then that's kind of what I want to do. If that's more acting or, I love being behind the camera, I don't know, I want to like make perfumes and stuff, like, I don't know, I just like creating stuff.
What does Troye Sivan smell like?
It's like woody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
time for us to wrap up, so I just want to end on a positive note, a note of hope. What is one thing through the process of making this film or promoting it or talking about it that's giving you hope?
I'm being constantly reminded of just how it's true people's enthusiasm for the film and the shock that they, you know, like I always figure like you make something because you have an impulse, and the plan of that is just if you believe something, chances are there's a bunch of other people that will believe that too. There's a lot of people that don't believe what I believe, and they're the people that probably should see this film. So if anybody has better ideas than me on how to get the wrong people to see the film, let us know through Twitter. But the response, knowing that there's such a kind of a warmth of reception, and that goes for, you know, negative reception in terms of this shock, like I had when I read the book. The more of that, the better. The louder the voices, the bigger the cacophony of that harmony of people going, let's do something. And the people's willingness to go beyond just going, oh, that's terrible, to actually do things, which is possible as well. That's been the hopefulness that we're putting out into the world, and I'm seeing that sort of come back through conversation and you know, in other sphere in terms of, you know, the internet and the ether.
I pull hope from the fact that all of you guys are here. I just hope that everyone goes and, you know, talks to their friends about this movie and talks to their parents about this movie, and hopefully, you know, the goal was to start a conversation and to, or, you know, make a real change, and I think that you guys can all be a part of that by just talking about this stuff. And if the movie is your entryway into those conversations, then that's awesome. And yeah, it gives me a lot of hope.
Joel and Troye, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight.